You're welcome to this tutorial, Beautygold's apparel. Thanks for subscribing to this useful channel. If this is your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. So sorry that for this particular tutorial there are no much lights there. This is kind of dark a little, so sorry for that. So we'll go straight to drafting. So I have my pattern paper there with me, and to start with, I want to my pattern paper is not on fold actually. I just place it straight, but if you wish to place it on fold, it's actually your choice. But this is the front part I'm trying to draft out now. So as you can see there, I marked a straight line there as the starting point. Then I divided my bust measurement by 4, and that's what I'm marking there now. But I'll still be adding like 5 inches allowance because we're going to be manipulating that in this tutorial. So for this part, we want to start with drafting the basic bodice block. So now the shoulder here I'm working with is 16 inches divided by 2. I think that is 8.5. That is 8 inch plus half inch allowance. So that is 8.5 that is there. So I marked the 8.5 inch there, as you can see. Then I came down there by 1 inch. At the edge there I came down there by 1 inch. Then the round the bust circumference divided by 12, whatever it gives you. Mine gave me 3.5. So I'm going to mark it here. As you can see, I marked the line there, so that is the 3.5 there. And then by the other end there, the tip of the shoulder, I came down by 1 inch like I said earlier, and then I connected it to the neck. Now I'm trying to get the armhole measurements. To get the armhole measurements, the bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5. So whatever you get, you mark it there. And then you rule a straight line. As you can see me doing, ruling a straight line. So that's my armhole line. So I'm just going to get the midpoint of that line. So when you get the midpoint, you just mark it, and then from the midpoint you measure half inch in. So from there, just going to slant it. If you know you cannot use your free hand, please make use of a French curve or an armhole curve. So just going to go in by probably half an inch, so as to reduce excessive folds the armpit there. Then back to the neck here, you come down by how deep you want it to be. But for this one, I'm going to be making use of short collar neckline, so it's not going to be deep. It's just going to be 3 inches. So I just came down with 3 inches, and then I connected it to a straight line, as you can see. And then the person's shoulder I'm working with, you need to make sure you know your neck measurement. The person's shoulder I'm working with is 15 inches. So that 15 inches, you have it in mind as you are cutting the neckline, should not be more than 15 inches. You know, it's front and back. So for this front, I think I got 8 or 9 inches there. So remember, it's on, it will be on fold. So if you measure it round and you have 5 inches, meaning it's 10 inches. So that means for the back you need to make it 5 inches. So just depend on how the person's neck is. So don't make that mistake so it will not be too wide. Then I mark the under bust line. Sorry, this is the breast line, the bust point. This is the bust point. And then from the shoulder there, I mark the under bust point. You can see me labeling it under bust line. And then from the measure the waistline. So you measure the waistline. And then there is just 1 inch allowance I added as same allowance. So this is all for the basic body. This is simply how to draft a basic body. So now I want to take the dart. For this tutorial, I'll be making use of dart manipulation because the material I want to use will not put dart. So we'll manipulate the dart on the pattern. So divide your bust pan into two. Your bust pan simply means your nipple to your nipple, from one nipple to the other nipple. So the measurement you get, divide it by 2, and that's what you mark it there. And then you draw a straight line. Draw a straight line down to the bust line, as you can see. Then the under bust line, you take 1 inch on both sides, and then that place there, just go by 1 inch. From the under bust line, you just go up by 1 inch. Then on the under bust line, you take 1 inch on the left side and 1 inch on the right side till you get down. Then you just mark it like this, as you can see me doing. And then you just connect it from where you marked 1 inch up. You just try to connect to make it a straight line down. So you can see me doing. So this is simply all for the waist darts. We have different types of darts. So in this particular tutorial, we'll be using 3 darts. This is the waist dart, which is also the normal dart. So dart manipulation simply means transferring darts on the pattern paper from the waist dart to another point. So this is the waist dart, and then this is the foundation of every single dart manipulation. So from this waist dart, this is all we'll start manipulating. This is all we'll start getting the other darts we use. Without this waist dart, you cannot get other darts you will use. So this is like a foundation for that. So on the side there, you just divide your bust circumference by 4. You add your necessary allowance, depend on how many you want the allowance to be. But for that bust line, I just marked 2 inches. So I'm on that point there, I'm dividing my bust circumference by 4. And then remember that we measure 2 inches for the dart. So that 2 inches are going to replace it back. So for example, if the waist is 30 divided by 4, let's say that 30 divided by 4 is going to give you 7.5. Remember, we use 2 inches for the dart, so we're going to cut that part off. So that 2 inches, you will add it to the 7.5, just give you 9.5. So that 9.5 is still going to add 2 inches allowance to it again. So before you mark as your waist. So that's what we're going to do for the under bust line and the waistline, because that's where we mark the dart. We do not touch the bust line at all. So we just mark our normal circumference and then add our normal allowance to it. Just follow the steps one by one. You'll be able to get it right. So this is me using the calculator so as to be sure what to mark there. But just follow closely. You will see how I'm going to connect the sides together. So I'm still measuring the sides. So this is actually the bust line. I'm measuring it. Then I mark that point there. So look at it now. I'm connecting the sides. You see, I'm just using a normal straight ruler. But if you have a curve you can use, there's no problem for that. Then if you know you're also good in freehand, you can also use freehand to connect it, but just make sure it's curved. You can see me doing, I'm trying to curve it again. So this person really has big belly. That's why I said that corner there is very kind of curvy. So if I don't make it that way, it's not going to accommodate the belly enough. So the waist of the person also determines how that place is going to be. So that the bust line that came down by 1 inch. So from that 1 inch, I just connected to the bust line. So that is what we call the French dart. You get it? The French dart. There are different types of darts, and I think one of these days I'm also going to drop a tutorial on the different types of darts we have, and then I'm still going to drop a tutorial on dart manipulation. And okay, this one is going to talk about dart manipulation. Yes, how we're going to manipulate these darts. So I'll drop a tutorial on how to get the different types of darts. We have different types of darts, so how to get different types of darts. And then so I'm going to drop a tutorial on how to draft a basic sleeve block and how to draft a basic half bodice block like this one here. So for the neckline here, the style I'm working with, there's a kind of a hole there, a keyhole. So I just marked, I think, half inch or 1 inch, but half inch is good. Then you just connect it down there. So we're going to cut off that part. So you can see me doing, I'm cutting it off now. And that showed that the way cutting just slant it there because the human shoulder is not straight. Just watch me closely as I cut it. Remember that when you transfer on fabric, you're going to add half-inch allowance on every side. I will serve as same allowance. So this is it, the waist dart, the French dart. So now we're going to incorporate the shoulder dart. So just watch how I cut this off. So the purpose of this three darts is going to like give the bust a new shape. Yes, it's going to give it a shape. So even though there's no dart, you see that the dress will still have shape on the client because of this dart. So you can see how I'm cutting it off. So be careful when cutting this part off, and then get your sellotape ready. The sellotape you have, if it is paper tape, just get it ready because we're going to need it very soon. Now I want to put the shoulder dart. I want to put the shoulder dart now. So to put your shoulder dart, you divide your shoulder dart. You can see when you measure it from the neck to the tip, what you get, you divide it by 2, and then you draw a straight line. So sorry for that long intermission. So on both sides you mark 1 inch. So the middle line there, which is the initial line, mark it straight to the bust line. You can see all the lines connecting to the bust line there. See the first line and the second line. So that part they're just going to cancel it off or cut it off. So this is shoulder dart. Sorry for that. So in this tutorial we made use of 3 darts: the shoulder dart, French dart, also known as bust dart, and the waist dart. So just say I'm cutting it there. So like I said earlier, get your paper tape or your sellotape ready. Okay, so you see how it looks. So why we are doing all this is just to give the dress fitting, so that when the person wears it will not have excess folds on the armhole, the shoulder will not be looking puffy and all that. This girl is going to give it the perfect shape it needs. So next time I'll drop the tutorial on how I stitch this beautiful dress together. So please like, share and subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you'll be notified immediately I drop that new video on how I made this dress. So you see I'm using my paper tape rather, to tape it down. So this is what we do in that manipulation, to hold this together, because we are not going to sew the dart on the dress. So we just tape it together on the paper and then just transfer the paper to the dress, and then cut whatever I want to cut. So make sure that when you're doing it, it does not have excessive folds. You can see that that part there is kind of a bit stressful, so you need to take your time. Yeah, that is already having a already having a bust shape already. So that is the purpose of all this, that has to give the breast shape. So even though there is no dart, it's still going to look good. So this, I also want to close the waist dart. So you can see me trying to close the waist dart. So I tried to do it from the up, but it was not easy. So I just decided to take it from the down. So just be careful around that area there. So you can see how it looks perfect. Just has the shape of the bust, even without any cup. You can see the way it's standing. Like you can see that it's standing well, as if it's bust. So this is the purpose of all these darts. So what the person wears is going to have perfect shape. So now I want to draft the back. The back does not have much stress like the front. So you can see that place I measured about 3 inches as for zipper allowance. This is the allowance, this is the starting point, the neckline. That place there I came down by 1 inch for shoulder, the bust line, the under bust line. So remember that the front, when we measured it, we got 4.5. So when you open it up, the neckline, so it's going to be 9 inches. So now, and the person's shoulder is 15. So 15 minus 9 is going to give me 8. So now I'm going to cut the neckline of the back to be, as I'm measuring, it's going to be 4 inches, or probably 4.5 inches. So when I open it up, it's going to be 9 inches. I guess it's going to be 9 inches or 4 inches. Means when I open it up, going to be 8 inches. It should not be too wide. So have this in mind. Just because you measure the back 3 inches does not mean the front has to be 2 inches. Sometimes it may even not be up to 1 inch. Just provided it's exactly the size of the person's neck. You can see I'm just struggling to make sure I get it right. So finally I've gotten it after 3 attempts. So I finally gotten it. So we'll take our normal dart measurements. But this one will not make use of the shoulder dart. It will be just the way, it will not make use of the bust dart, rather. It will be just the waist dart and the shoulder dart. So I marked my normal 1 inch above the under bust line. So you can see it there. Then the under bust line and the other side, measuring 1 inch, and then I want to mark that 1 inch straight down. And another thing, this back, the back is shorter than the front. I mean the back pattern. The reason is because front is always longer than back because of the breast. You get? So I think I'm going to hold a tutorial also on how to take accurate body measurements. I think that will help. So on the waist, if you notice, the front is always longer than the back. So that is the purpose for the bust dart. That's the reason why we took 1 inch, so as to make the sides equal with the back. So that's the reason, and to give it shape also. So now the shoulder, I want to take the line, the shoulder dart also. Now just mark it straight to the bust line, also due to the front. So the difference between the front and the back is shorter than the front. The neck is shorter than the front neck, depend on the style you are sewing. There's some style that the back neck will have to be deeper than that of the front. For a particular one, the back neck is higher, and then the waist dart. So for the back, we use just the shoulder dart and the waist dart. So now I want to get my shoulder. I want to get my zip allowance. Now, to prevent zip bulge, this is what you need to do. You come out there by 1 inch first to sew middle, then connect it to the neckline up. So the line is going to be slant, it will not be straight. You get it? This is to prevent zip bulge. You know that sometimes when we make clothes, so that the zip will be dancing at the back, it will have to look like as if it's pregnant. So this is the reason for it, so it to be straight, because the human back is not straight. It is kind of slant a bit, is not straight. Those are the way we came down by the shoulder, because the shoulder is not straight. That's how we also do for the back. Now that point there, you also come out by 1 inch, then connect it back again down to the waist. This is what I did. If you don't understand this part, watch it again. So this part here is now just to cancel it off. We don't need it. So we've gotten what we needed. The back pattern ought not to be straight at the zip part, because our back is not straight. It is slant. Our human back is not straight. So that's why if you want to confirm, you can just get somebody and then just tell the person to stand by the side, then you view it from the side. You see that at the body waist here, it went inside. Most especially women, it went inside. So that's the reason why we're going there. So these are for the back. Remember to always replace your darts. So this is what I just did here, replacing my dart and then dividing the waist measurement and having it at the sides. It's just the normal thing we did at the front. So just watch closely as I cut. So this is basically all. I'm done trimming and I've taped. You can see how it looks now. So this is all for the back. Very easy, it's not that stressful. So when you just follow this step by step, you definitely get what you want. So now I want to just transfer this to fabric. So all I need to do is just to add ½ inch allowance by the side and just cut along. That's all for the cutting. I'm going to drop next video on how So I'm done cutting that. Now I want to cut the flay. So to cut the flay, first of all measure the waist round divided by 4. So let's say for instance you get, after dividing your waist round by 4, you first of all fold your fabric into 4. Then you measure your waist circumference or wherever the flay wants to be. Measure it round and then divide it by 4. So the measurement you get, you first measure it from that folded end down, and then the length of the flay you measure it from there down. This one is longer than it, please adjust it. So as you can see, I've measured the waist. This is actually the front. So I've measured the waist, and remember it's folded. So that waist there, I'll just, what I got there, I'll divide it again by 2, because it's already folded into 2. So I'll divide it by 2. But assuming you are just measuring round, divide by 4. So I discovered that I folded it too big, so I'm trying to adjust it again. You can see me doing. So be careful when you're adjusting, so you not scatter it, and then you need to stress yourself to arrange all over again. And from that end, they just come down by some inches, which is depending on what you get after folding, after measuring his waist circumference by 4. What you get is what you measured there. Let's say for example you get 5. It's 5 you measured there as a starting point, and then you now try to measure from that point round to the other point with 5 inches. So try to measure 5 inches round to get what you want. You can see me placing the tape. Then you just connect it like that. And then from that point there, just mark how long you want the flare to be. Remember to add the allowance, at least 1 inch allowance. And then we measure from that point there where you circle ended, measure the length of the flare again, add the allowance, and then start measuring down. That's all you need for flare. This is a 360-degree flare actually. It's very simple, it's not difficult. The reason it's called 360 is after cutting it, you don't get any cut side, as in no open side. Both ends are closed. So that's why it's called 360. So if you wish to divide it, then you're going to want to divide it yourself. Just follow closely. This is all for it.